Hey everybody, this is Keith Hilson at the Schmidt Music Trombone Shop, back with another Mouthpiece review for you. And by the way, glad to welcome you into our brand new brass shop location. So, a few months ago, I had done a review of a couple of the new SE Shires artist model mouthpieces that they've designed in conjunction with Pickett Brass. Specifically, we've taken a look at the Marshall Gilks and the Michael Davis. Now, I had mentioned at that time that I was awaiting for another one of their artist models, the Colin Williams. And I am happy to say that that mouthpiece has just arrived in the shop. So again, there were some things I was really looking forward to see what they did with Colin's mouthpiece. You know, obviously his large bore tenor with Shires has been a really popular choice. You know, and given the work that he does and the needs and the demands and kind of his approach, I was really interested to see what they were going to do with the mouthpiece. So I'm going to share that experience with you, take a little play on it, and then, of course, we'll talk about it afterward. I'm going to be playing all of this today on one of the Bach Artisan A47 large bore tenors. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, since SE Shires announced their new line of artist mouthpieces, I've been very anxious to give them a try. And like I said, we were able to receive in a couple of their small shank options, the Marshall Gilks, the Michael Davis, that have been really well received. I've had a number of folks already pick them up in the shops. And again, in general, what I've really liked with the Shires is collaboration with Pickett is that I think they've done some really, in a way, a little bit different things than, for example, what Pickett does with their own custom mouthpieces. And I think they seem to fit the Shires mouthpieces really well, And like I said, I'm really excited about their collaboration with their artists because Shires has certainly proven themselves able to design mouthpieces with artists that are not only just working really well for the artist, but tend to be a little more accessible. I think the Colin Williams definitely falls into that category as well. So Colin Williams obviously is a large shank mouthpiece, comes in around like a 25.75. So something like a 4.5, something like that. For me, I can tell, so I'm mostly a 5 player. It feels a little bit bigger, but not too big. And I think that's in part because of the rim. As compared to, some of the other mouthpieces we see out there who tend to take a little more of a Bach approach where, they're not really thin, but they're kind of moderately, thin, have a little bit of roundness to it. This has a slight more cushion to it. So it's a slightly flatter rim, a little bit wider. And what I think that does, for me, it helps a little bit, give me a little cushion so it doesn't feel quite as big as if maybe it were a little bit thinner. And as far as, the cup depth, it's a medium deep cup, not overly deep. I'd say balanced throat and back bore. And one of the things that I think is interesting with this is that compared to some of the other Shires mouthpieces or even the other artist models, this has a little bit lighter blank. So we can even see here kind of how they have it contoured. So it's a little bit lighter. And what I think that does, it really lends itself to the overall experience with the mouthpiece. My first reaction when I played this mouthpiece was the term clarion. There's a character to it where it's very stable, and I think I attribute that to maybe, at least for me, approach to having kind of the balanced cup depth and the balanced airflow. It's not too shallow, not too tight in the airflow, but it's not too wide either. And I think the stability for me also comes a little bit from the width of the mouthpiece. In my experience, I tend to find wider, flatter rims tend to have more stability. They tend to lock into notes and have more of that continuation with it. But the challenge with that sometimes is if it gets too wide, too flat, sometimes I experience issues with flexibility. And I think they struck a really nice balance with this, that combined with the overall timbre. Again, when we think of major orchestral players, there's always a certain depth to the sound, right? There's a weight to it. I mean, that's just the need of the orchestral player. What's really interesting about this is it comes across to me as a very efficient mouthpiece. I wouldn't call it bright by any means. There's a certain, not even lightness is the right word there. It's almost a little bit like an alto character, and that's maybe not the best description, but it doesn't have the same weight and breadth of sound, heaviness of a sound that we see from so many other large shank mouthpieces. It does have a little bit different lightness to it, which gives it a little bit different color that I really, really appreciate. I feel like I'm able to go through, especially in the upper register, I thought it really, really sang nicely. With, again, remaining accessible, but I still feel like I had a little bit of ability to change the color, but not going overboard. Because again, that's where the stability factor comes in as well. It feels like as I'm playing it, as I'm adjusting my airflow to figure out what the mouthpiece needs, it is giving me a little bit of this color movement that I tend to like, but at the same time, it's remaining fairly stable. And what I really like about it is, again, I find so often so many of our larger mouthpieces just do tend to be heavy, right? Just overall, and whether it's the airflow, whether it's the overall responsiveness, they just tend to have a little more mass to it. I really like this because I think it's a little bit different option within this. And again, I think it's something that's very accessible. For me, it feels just a little bit on the big side, but I could use it. I'd feel really comfortable with it. And I think it's really nice to have an option between like the 5 and 4 range because as players, we're all over the place. And sometimes for some folks, the 4s get a little bit big, whether it's just the overall cup width or the cup depth as well. Sometimes we don't need that much airflow. So I think this is a really nice balance of everything. So kudos once again to SC Shires and Pickett. I think they did a fantastic job with this, and I look forward to having more people spend time with it and see what they think. So as always, thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to our channel so you can get notifications when you hit that notification button, find out when we're putting new videos out that are hopefully going to be interesting, important to you. And of course, you can always find us on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching.